Hey guys, what's up? Today I'll be testing quite an interesting pair of planar headphones that are called Sendy Audio AIVA that are going for $5.99. There is plenty of talk about the Sendy's AIVA, and as they say, hearing is believing, so I needed to hear them for myself to see what's the fuss about, and I'm glad I did. But are they worth it in the end? That's a very powerful question that I'll try to answer today. So let's check them out and break it down step by step. We are dealing here with a handmade open back planar magnetic headphone that is built by using only long-lasting materials such as aluminum, steel, wood and leather. It has a lightweight but really strong metal frame, and no matter where I'm looking at, I'm seeing a high attention to details and a great selection of materials. The shape of the cups is very distinctive, the headband design is quite special, the metal frame looks unique, and everything is quite fresh and new to this particular model. I really dig their sleek looks, and if they sound half as good as they look, Sendy Audio got a winner on their hands. The cable quality is impressive, it seems to be handmade, it uses high purity single crystal copper conductors, it has a beautiful wooden splitter, sturdy stainless steel jacks, terminated with a 4.4mm Pentacon jack. The only thing that I dislike about this cable and about the headphones themselves are those flimsy 2.5mm jacks. The earbuds are deep, soft and padded with plenty of memory foam. I find them gentle on the cheeks and soft enough to be used in long listening sessions. These are always breathing, so forget about the sweaty ears in the summertime. They fit around my head snugly and provide enough padding, putting little to no pressure around my ears. As for the tech inside them, AIVA is a fully open back headphone that uses a 97 by 76mm planar drivers. The thickness of AIVA's diaphragm sits at only 3 microns, and that's 20 times thinner than human hair. Its diaphragm is driven by a double-sided magnet structure arranged in a pull-push configuration, and that's exactly how most mid to high-end planar magnetic headphones are running nowadays. Please don't be misled by its lower impedance of just 32 ohms, because at a sensitivity of 96 dB per 1 mW of power, you'll need some proper amplifiers to drive these to adequate levels of performance. Okay everyone, enough with the talk and let's hit some eardrums. In terms of sound performance, for starters, there is a very welcome increase in dynamic range and transparency and cleanness compared to some of the dynamic headphones and even to entry to mid-level planars. So these are quite resolving and clean sounding headphones, and if you want to hear more micro details, more small nuances, then AIVA will be providing a little bit more even compared to some of the pricier headphones like Quad Era One, like RZH Mania. So with most setups, this will be providing quite an impressive mid-bass performance, a healthy impact into the eardrums, a warmer mid-range compared to entry to mid-level hi-fi headphones, but not as much meat to the bone compared to all these equations that are slightly more impressive, starting with the sub-bass and can deliver a slightly warmer upper mid-range. So there is plenty of treble information going past 16 kHz. So these are quite extended in the treble, so quite impressive, and I find them pretty much in line with higher priced planar headphones when it comes to treble delivery. However, if you are into treble intensive music like rock and metal, then there is a very weird treble ringing, like a treble echo, like the sound coming from a metal tube. I'm not about brightness, I'm not about listening fatigue, because they don't have any of that. I find them quite gentle actually in the most sensitive part of our hearing, so between 4 and 7 kHz there is actually a drop. But the way the treble is being reproduced it's slightly weird. So there is a little bit of treble ringing, a little bit of more texture. If you ever listened to some of the full balanced armature IEMs, they have pretty much the same treble delivery, the same treble texture, ringing, call it as you want. Apart from that, there is a gentle slope in the sub-bass and a slight roll-off in the most sensitive area of our hearing, making them somewhat warmer sounding that could be enjoyed in long listening sessions. I will briefly touch the subject of their sensitivity and of how much power is actually needed to drive them fully and to enjoy them fully. So at 96 dB per 1 single milliwatt of power, these aren't exactly easy to drive, and you should prepare a proper desktop setup for the best results, as I believe that small USB gizmos, portable dongles and all that just wouldn't cut it. So they need as much power compared to Quad Era 1, RZH Phobos, HiFiMan HE1000 SE, and considerably more power compared to Gold Planar GL2000, Harmonic Dyne Zeus and Kennerton Wodan. So there wasn't enough volume with my smartphone, with my tablet, with my laptop. Dynamics were completely missing in action. They sounded slightly better out of small dongles, Bluetooth dongles, BTR5 by Fire or QDLX 5K, even those small USB dongles like Shanling UA1 and UA2 worked decently, but not great. Still, dynamics weren't that impressive. They weren't punchy sounding to me. When I moved to some bigger, like portable DAPs, portable DAC amps, bigger units, like Shanling M6, 5 M11 Plus, they worked just much better. Finally, those drivers just awakened from their hibernation. Dynamics were much better. Of course, if you want the best results out of them, I just recommend you a proper headphone setup, a dedicated headphone amplifier. You can start with something cheaper like topping A50S. If you want some of the best results, I believe that transistor-based amplifiers like Flux FI10 and Singster SA1 that I just mentioned would be elevating their performance to a higher level, adding just a little bit more body in the upper mid-range and taming the slight echo in the treble. In terms of transit response, I believe that this part alone depends very much on your headphone amplifier. So on a top-tier headphone setup, this will be providing a good to great speed and decay of the notes, so I find them speedy sounding, but not so impressive when it comes to bass slam, when it comes to viscerality, when it comes to impact. Mostly because several dB from 20 to 40 Hz are just missing all that fun, missing all that action. So sure, there is a decent kick into my eardrums, sure there is plenty of air traveling down low in the bass, sure there is an above decent bass quality with this particular headphone. Sadly, Mjolnir's thunderclap cannot be felt with the Sendy's AIVA. However, if I'm taking into consideration their price point of $599, I don't think there is a more enjoyable, more impactful sounding headphone. So HiFiMan Sundara aren't that impressive in this department. Harmonic Dyne Zeus aren't calling down the thunder. And of course, Sennheiser HD650, HD600 aren't that impressive again in this department. So realistically speaking, all things considered, including the price point of this headphone, I think that they are good sounding in terms of transit response and definitely sound like big planar headphones. So there is still a decent bass rumble, there is that physical connection with the low end, with bass intensive music, and all that was delivered in a clean and undistorted way. As for Soundstage, for an open back headphone with some big planar magnetic drivers, it's just normally expecting a bigger sound, a wider sound, a sound that would be wrapping me entirely, with notes flying around my head, hovering around me and picking them up like butterflies. And that was certainly the case with the Sendy's AIVA, but to a smaller degree. So there is still a pretty good soundstage size, medium size, let's say so. There is still plenty of air traveling between the notes, but they aren't that impressive when it comes to soundstage size compared to some other open back planars. So in this regard, they remind me quite a lot about semi-open headphones like Olo S4X reference, like harmonic dyne zeros, and they go pretty much into the same direction, and that is perfectly fine because not everybody wants a big wide sound, not everybody really enjoys that. So again, Soundstage isn't exactly big and wide, isn't really wrapping me entirely, but it isn't claustrophobic at all, so it isn't closed in, it isn't upfront sounding. And in this regard, they sound more impressive compared to the HD6XX family of headphones by Sennheiser, and of course, bigger sounding to the Odyssey LCD1. In its defense, I will mention that these are more impressive when it comes to depth. It's actually one of its strongest points. And if you close your eyes, you can easier follow a musician. You can feel the distance between you and any musical note that is flying in the distance. And all that creates a precise 3D map of the music that is being played. In terms of detail retrieval, finally I've arrived at the culmination of what makes Sendy's AIVA a great headphone in the first place. As no matter the track, no matter the headphone setup, they always wanted to impress me with their cleanness, with their transparency, with their high detail retrieval. They just could unearth a higher amount of micro nuances, of micro details. And it's so refreshing hearing them pop everywhere in my tracks in the most unusual places. What's more interesting to the AIVA is that they can retain the same cleanness, the same sparkle, even at much lower volumes. And try doing that with a pair of HD600 by Sennheiser. Those can't do that actually. When I say highly detailed, by no means I'm addressing only to its treble region. I'm actually addressing to the whole frequency range because there is more happening in the bass, more happening in the mid-range, more happening in the treble, and that is so easy to feel, so easy to catch all those notes. They're just working as a microscope for your music, and the amount of detail retrieval is actually very tied to the headphone setup that is being connected to. So if you go higher with your DAC, if you go higher with the headphone amplifier, they'll be scaling pretty much immediately. Go higher and they will be responding back. Go even higher and AIVA will be surpassing pricier headphones and even reaching several headphones in the 1K price range. Moving on to the frequency response, planar magnetic headphones are basically famous for delivering excellent performance when it comes to bass, quantity and quality, and of course Sendy's AIVA isn't an exception from that rule. Just connect them to a desktop headphone amplifier and just expect a powerful, dense, defined bass performance. There is a gentle slope somewhere between 20 and 50 Hz, but it isn't that much, so it isn't that worrisome. I can presume that its perforated earpads are causing this, but of course I cannot prove my claims because I don't have earpads that could fit on this particular model. Past 50 Hz, everything goes back to normal, so there is again plenty of definition, plenty of control, bass becomes powerful. You'll find a highly technical and enjoyable mid-bass section, and that's one of the best parts of this particular model. AIVA starts strong in the mid-range and offers just a straight line up until 1 kHz where it just starts its descent. So mid-range comes just in right doses, but I find it slightly warmer, more impressive compared to a Haifaman Sundara, but less so compared to an Odyssey LCD2. So you'll find just a technical sounding mid-range, there is a little bit of warmth, there's a little bit of smoothness, but not too much of it. As a side note, I find them slightly more impressive, actually not slightly, but more impressive to a harmonic dyne zeros that just sliced a big portion of the upper mid-range. Luckily that isn't really happening with the Sendy's AIVA. So I find them rich and fuller sounding only out of transistor-based Class A amplifiers, out of tube-based amplifiers, out of R2R units, and just mildly smooth, mildly warm out of everything else. Vocal performance seems to be great, voices never sounded nasal or shouty, and they always had a natural decay. I find them pleasant and really unoffensive when it comes to treble delivery, mostly because they will never raise the treble energy even by a single dB. So at best they have the treble pretty much at the same level with the mid-range and the mid-bass, and at worst they'll be just rolling off a little bit portions of the treble. So of course you can discard notions as brightness, as listening fatigue, because you will never feel any of that with the Sendy's AIVA. So they are not hot sounding even with treble intensive music, and of course you will never lower your volume when drumsticks are hitting down those cymbals. There is plenty of detail up top. I find them quite extended in there and gentle enough for aggressive and treble intensive music. I've also measured their performance with a mini DSP ear system, so everything from frequency response, total harmonic distortion, spectral decay, waterfall and spectrogram. And if you are into that, I strongly recommend checking out my measurement analysis in the written review that I've put below. You'll also find a comparison with a Sennheiser HD600, which I find interesting, but not extremely relevant. As for my conclusions, if I'm discarding that slight treble echo, that limited soundstage size, transient response, then I think Sendy's AIVA are great sounding headphones. Their warmer tonality, that awesome bass, that awesome mid-range really stand out from the crowd compared to entry to mid-level planars. And of course that gentle and unoffensive treble delivery works outstanding with pretty much anything. They work great even out of linear or bright sounding setups. AIVA aren't stealing a lot of attention thanks to their relaxed sound tuning, but they'll be surely turning heads thanks to their unique look and beautiful design. Their lower clamping force, thicker ear pads and simple headband slider makes them comfortable to wear and pleasant to look at. And if you are hunting for a daily driver planar headphone and 1K offerings are too expensive for your blood, then there is definitely a lot of appeal in Sendy's offering. Okay guys, my full in-depth review can be found on my website. In case you want to support this channel, please subscribe to it, and as usual, listen to my music. Be positive, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!